What is up, everybody? This video, I wanted to talk to you guys about the project lifecycle from inception all the way through project closeout. So in this example, I'm going to use a residential project because it's a little bit smaller in scale and it's easier to understand. There are 6 main characters or individuals typically involved in a residential project, in any given residential project. The first person is the client. The client is going to be typically the one who initiates the project. Number 2 is the architect, and the architect is going to be designing the house. The next person is the structural engineer. The structural engineer is going to be the person who makes sure that the building doesn't collapse and that the walls are strong enough to hold up the roof and that the foundation is strong enough to hold up the weight of the entire structure. Then we have the Title 24 consultant. So the Title 24 consultant is the person or company who's going to make sure that our building is running in an energy efficient manner, right? So the air conditioning system is going to be spec'd according to the design of that house to make sure that we're not using too much energy when trying to cool the house and too much energy when we're trying to warm up the house. The next person is going to be the contractor, the person who's actually going to build this thing. So the contractor is going to be the one who's going to be ordering all the materials and who's going to be responsible for actually constructing the building. The last person involved is the authority having jurisdiction, and that's the city that you are building in. In this example, it's going to be Los Angeles City, so it's going to be Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety. Now, there's many different departments within the city of Los Angeles that will be involved in a project like this, but for now, we're just going to refer to them as the city. The client will typically call an architect. They'll have something in mind, right? Like a project, and say, I want to add some square footage to the house, or I want to build a brand new house, and they'll contact the local architect and say, hey, is this something that you can help with? The architect is going to go on site and they're going to field verify dimensions, existing conditions to help them in preparing their proposal and then moving on to design, etc., etc. The next step is, after they conduct the site meeting, the architect will then take all of that information and prepare a contract between him or herself and the client. So the contract in general will include what the scope of work is and how much the architect is going to charge the client. Now, there's many different things that are involved in the contract and included in the contract, but for now we're just going to say it's the scope of work and the amount that the architect is going to charge. So once that contract is agreed to both by the architect and the property owner, the client, then the contract is signed, and then the architect moves on to actually starting the design process. During the design process, the architect and the client will have some back and forth. They'll have some conversations. The architect will come up with a preliminary design and say, okay, here's the bathroom, here's the bedroom, here's the kitchen. And then there will be some back and forth between the architect and the client. And the client will give some feedback and say, no, actually, you know what? I want the closet to be a little bit bigger, or I want there to be a stand-in shower as opposed to a tub, etc., etc. So there will be some back and forth here until they actually settle on a design. Once the design has been finalized, then the architect will engage the structural engineer and the Title 24 consultant. So the architect will gather their drawings and send them out to the Title 24 consultant and the structural engineer, and both of those team members will then start working on their respective scope of work. So once the architect receives the structural engineer's drawings and the Title 24 report, then they'll go through and they will verify to make sure that everything is lining up. So let's say, for example, the structural engineer calls out 2x6s along the perimeter of the wall. 2x6 studs are 5.5 inches deep. Let's say, for example, the Title 24 consultant is calling out for an insulation type that is 6 or 7 inches deep. So then the architect has to go back and tell the Title 24 consultant, hey, listen, our exterior walls are 2x6s. Let's adjust the Title 24 report to fit within that allowed cavity. Once the architect goes through all of the drawings and makes sure that the structural drawings, the Title 24 consultant's drawings are all in alignment with the design, then the architect will assemble the entire drawing set, all of the blueprints, into one big set and in preparation to submit to the city. So once the architect submits the drawings to the city will then spend some time reviewing the drawings to make sure that they are to code and in compliance with all of the city's regulations. Usually the drawings will be distributed to, for example, the planning department, the fire department, the Department of Water and Power. The city will make sure that the project is up to code. It's part of the architect's responsibility to know the local building codes and design per those codes before submitting to the city for review. So once they submit the drawings to the city for review, there will be some back and forth again between the city and the architect. The city will issue corrections and say, oh, you missed this dimension, or this bathroom is a little bit too small, or this dimension needs to be a little bit bigger in order to provide, clear walkway for somebody, or the door is too small. So there will be some back and forth here, and then usually it takes around 2, maybe 3 rounds of back and forth between the drawings are then finalized and the city stamps it and says, hey, your permit is ready to issue. Once the permit is ready to issue, the architect will then take those permitted and stamped drawings and send them to the contractor so that the contractor can prepare a construction bid. Now, the construction bid will include a lot of detail and specify exactly what will be purchased as far as materials and timeline. Once the contractor completes their construction bid, they'll send it over to the architect and the client, and it's the architect's responsibility to go through that contract, that construction bid, with the client in detail and verify that everything is included. We're not missing any tiles, we're not missing any fixtures, no scope of work is missing, right? So we don't want the contractor during construction say, hey, you never told me about the jacuzzi or whatever it is. Once the construction bid is reviewed and agreed to, then the client will sign the construction bid and the contractor can then proceed with construction. Now, during the construction phase, there will be moments where the city will need to come out and do what is called an inspection during certain periods of the construction process. So for example, once the excavation is done for the foundations, the city will come out and inspect the excavation, and then once framing is done, the city will come out and do a framing inspection. Same goes for plumbing, mechanical, electrical, finishes, insulation. At the very end, there will be what's called a final inspection, and the city will come out one last time and just make sure that everything is in accordance with the design drawings. They need to make sure that what is constructed is exactly what is on the plans. Once that is complete, then the architect will do what is called a punch walk. And usually this involves the contractor, the architect, and the owner. They'll walk the property and they'll just make sure that everything is okay and point out any kind of touch-ups that need to happen, any paint touch-up, or if there's any kind of damaged fixtures or missing lights or something needs some adjusting. They'll create a list and provide that to the contractor, and the contractor will do one final touch-up before the owner is actually moved in and enjoying their space. And that's it, guys, for this video. I hope that was helpful. And if there's anything you guys want me to talk more in detail about, please leave a comment or send me a DM and I'll be happy to create another video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.